Have you tried running Facebook ads without success? Maybe you're now one of those people who don't actually believe that Facebook ads work. Well, I can tell you that after 5 years of marketing experience, this is far from the truth. It's not that ads don't work, it's just that you don't understand how to set up a successful ad. And a big part of setting up a successful ad in the first place is understanding how to write really compelling ad copy. So in this video, I'll be teaching you my exact Facebook ads copy formula that you can use to start making better ads today and get a better return on investment. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the Megan Taylor Creative YouTube channel. As I said in the introduction, in this video I will be talking about how to create really compelling Facebook ad copy, and I'll be sharing with you my personal secret formula that I've been using for real client projects as well as for running ads for my own business that really truly get results. Before we actually look at how to write the perfect Facebook ads formula, we need to look at what you need. We need to take a look at the things you need to know before you start writing your copy. And there are things you need to know, because if you really want to create a successful ad, you need to be very strategic about it. It's not the same as creating a organic social media marketing campaign. There's quite a lot at stake here, especially if you're a small business and you're running an ad for the first time. You have no idea whether or not Facebook actually works. So I think that actually taking the time to think about what it is that you actually want to achieve is a really good idea. It's something that's really overlooked, because I think when people use ads, specifically small business owners, a lot of the time they see it as a last resort and they really want to make sure that they're getting results now, and because of that they just set up an ad without much thought at all, and then it doesn't work. All this is going to do is actually take any kind of faith that you had that ads, paid advertisement online actually works in the first place. But it does. You just need to understand how they work, what your target audience is looking for, what will make them stop scrolling when they're on Facebook, and what kind of copy will actually appeal to them to get them to take the action that you want them to take. So the first thing that you need to know, as I've alluded to, is your goal. And this is important for several reasons. The first reason is that when you set up an ad on Facebook, it will ask you specifically what your objectives are. There's a few different options here, but whatever objective you pick, it will have an impact on the ad itself, and also things like bidding strategy and basically just how Facebook runs the ad in general. So that's also something to consider. But when it comes to the actual copywriting aspect of Facebook ads, you need to know your goal and objective, because if you're simply just setting up an ad to raise brand awareness, this type of ad is going to have copy that reads vastly different from an ad that is all about getting more sales, or an ad that wants to drive more website traffic. You also need to be able to actually understand how to review the performance of your Facebook ads campaign. I'll go over key metrics that you need to know in another video, but it is important that you know this at the beginning so that you have a frame of reference when you're thinking about your copy. You can understand what your key motivations are and what kind of copy is going to get you there. The next thing you need to know is who you're targeting, and this is incredibly important when it comes to Facebook ads, because Facebook's targeting capabilities are so impressive. Facebook has a thing called custom audiences, which essentially allows you to create an audience group that you are targeting for a specific ad. And it's just so powerful because it really lets you get into the nuts and bolts of your target audience. You can choose really specific characteristics of your target audience, and that's really helpful for, say, if you're wanting to run multiple campaigns and multiple variants of your campaign at once, and each campaign variant you're targeting a slightly different buyer persona. So you're actually able to kind of take Facebook ads, take your target audience, and actually implement that into Facebook, and Facebook will find the exact people that you want to find. So if you don't know that, it's really going to negatively impact your Facebook ads. And the next thing you need to do is actually get used to the interface. If you've never set up Facebook ads before, the interface can be quite overwhelming. I personally find it quite intuitive. I think that's because with paid ads, I first started using Google Ads, which is way more complicated and way more archaic in terms of the interface. It's not nearly as modern or user-friendly, I think, anyway, as something like Facebook ads, which really helps you find the information that you need to find clearly. It's so much easier to set up an ad for a beginner, which is why I always recommend 9 times out of 10 a new client to start with Facebook ads first, unless they have a specific goal that's more achievable on Google Ads. Generally speaking, Facebook is super easy to use, but it is definitely worth spending some time watching YouTube videos or reading guides about how to use Facebook, because there's quite a lot of information to take in all at once. But as I said, I feel like the interface really kind of breaks down the key elements. And with that in mind, the key elements that you'll really want to take note of are your ad sets. So ad sets are essentially groups of ads. So we talked earlier about setting up different variants of a specific ad campaign, and you can do this using something called ad sets. And this is essentially a group of ads that all have the same goal, but are just running different variants and targeting different audiences essentially. And you'll also want to make a note of where you can change your bidding strategy, especially if you're a small business. You want to be particular about your bidding strategy, because Facebook often actually defaults it to a certain setting, which is sometimes not a setting that you want. If it's like the highest bid, for example, you might actually want to take a more strategic approach with the money that you're spending. And obviously you'll actually want to look out for the create button, which is luckily right at the very top, and that's where you can actually create your ad. And then at the end of the dashboard, you'll have other important bits of information specifically related to performance strategy and actually turning the ads on and off, because sometimes campaigns do have a time limit and you don't want them running forever, otherwise they'll just continue to spend money, and that can be very frustrating. I've had clients had that happen to them before because they've not been managing their account properly. So it's really important that you familiarize yourself with this so that you don't end up in that position. You also want to understand the platform limitations. So every ad platform has restrictions and limitations, and Facebook Ads Manager is no exception. I do find Facebook Ads Manager is a little bit generous in comparison to other ads managers like Google Ads, for example, in terms of what they allow you to have in your ads regarding characters and, how long your headlines are. So for Facebook Ads Manager, you have 40 characters to play with in your headline, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you think that a title should be about 60 characters, that's actually quite a lot to play with. So you could be really creative with that. Then you have about 125 characters in your primary text, which is where the majority of your copy will sit. And then you have 30 characters in your description. There are also other limitations to be aware of depending on the type of ad that you're running. For instance, if you're running a carousel ad, you can only have 10 cards in your carousel at any given time. And if you're leveraging things like microcopy, you really want to make sure that you're aware of the fact that you only have 10 cards at a maximum to ensure that you're able to tell the story with your carousels in the right way. The next thing that you need to know is what type of ad are you running. So with Facebook, there are 2 different types of ads that you can run. There are different types of formats, but the 2 types of ads that you can run include sponsored ads or right-hand column ads. Both have their pros and cons, but if you're particularly new to Facebook ads, I personally highly recommend sticking to sponsored ads because they're a lot easier to set up, especially if you have some experience with organic social media posts. They are essentially like that, only you have to learn how to access your ad and the particular ad set within the Facebook Ads Manager account you're controlling. So I personally recommend those, but right-hand ads can be particularly fruitful for things like if you're trying to get more product sales. It's a bit more intrusive, so you do want to bear that in mind, and that doesn't always go over well with Facebook users, but they can be really effective if used in the right way. Now that we have an understanding of what we're trying to achieve with Facebook ads and we have the necessary information in place to actually set up our ads in the first place, let's look at the Facebook ads formula that I have used that has worked so well for so many different client projects. It's important noting that just because this is my formula doesn't mean that you have to use it in the exact way that I tell you how to use it. You can obviously mess around with it and add different parts, but I've just found that obviously you need to be particularly structured structured when it comes to Facebook ads because you do have limitations, and this formula hits a few really key points and allows you to tell a full story within the limitations that you have. So that's why I think it's so effective as well, and it's really easy to understand for beginners. And if you don't know how to write copy that well yet, I do actually have a free copywriting course which I will link below. The first part of my Facebook ads formula is to include a hook. All great ad copy starts with a hook, regardless of what platform you're on, and how you approach your hook will depend entirely on the type of ad you're making. So if you're leveraging carousel ads, for example, you might actually want to implement your hook within the images themselves as micro copy. But assuming that you're just sticking to a standard image sponsored post, which is essentially a normal feed post, only it's boosted and will get shown more because you're paying for more reach, then your hook will likely be in your headline. And as I mentioned before, you only have 40 characters to play with, so you really need to be kind of clever here. And the best way that I've found to get readers interested in your ad is to actually ask questions that call out the reader. So this is really effective for a number of different reasons, but the first is that you can keep the headline and the hook itself very short. You can make it 2 or 3 lines if you really want, but a lot of the time people aren't actually going to see that, so it's not really worth wasting the characters that you do have for your copy on a really long hook. Instead, you want to make sure that it's 1 sentence, and the easiest way to do this is by asking the reader a very simple but powerful question that gets them to think about the position that they're in. When you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're using very direct language so the reader feels like they're being spoken to. And remember as well that when the reader is on Facebook, they're not thinking about buying new product or services. With Facebook, they're more interested in being entertained or interacting with their friends and family. So you really need to make an extra effort to actually stop them scrolling, and that's a really great way to do that by calling them out and asking a question. With that question, you also need to address the pain point, and you also need to give a little bit of context here. So this is where you can use things like storytelling, narratives, and copywriting frameworks that we discussed in the free copywriting course last week. You can start to actually apply those to your copy here. The only thing is that obviously you don't really have that much room to play with, so you're not going to be able to use a lot of descriptive language, and you don't want to. You want to tell stories, but you want to make it free. It's important to think about how you would speak directly to your target audience. What kind of language do they actually resonate with the most? And once you've actually established an appropriate tone of voice, it's a lot easier to understand the type of language that you should be using when you're addressing their pain point. You'll want to make sure as well that you're also focusing entirely on what their life is like now, sort of like the Before After Bridge, which was a copywriting framework that I've covered a few times here on the channel. And you essentially just want to highlight why that problem is so frustrating and what impact it's actually really having on their life, because once they start thinking about the problem, they're going to get agitated, and that's what they want, because they'll start to think, how can I solve this problem? And that's pushing them into the buying mindset. Before, they definitely weren't in the buying mindset on Facebook, but now that you've got them thinking about a specific problem, you are pushing them down that funnel slowly. Once you've done this, you can actually then come in and offer a solution. And it's important that you make this part of your copy particularly compelling and clear, because if your offer doesn't sound exciting, then why would anyone buy it? And if your target audience, if your audience actually doesn't understand what your copy is about in the first place, if your reader doesn't understand what your offer is in the first place, then they're definitely not going to buy from you. So make sure that you refer back to the 4 C's of copywriting and just ensure that your offer is as clear and exciting as possible to actually get the reader excited about what you're offering. The next tip that I have, and this isn't necessarily part of the formula itself, but you can kind of include this within your offer, and that is to use scarcity. And if you want the reader to take immediate action, then this is the way forward. Again, people that use Facebook, they're not in a buying mode. When they do see an ad, a lot of the time they will just scroll past it and they won't even register it. But if you really want to make your offer compelling, then using scarcity essentially gets them to act now, because they don't want to miss out on a particularly good offer. Now, I would be careful with using scarcity. I wouldn't use any shady tactics, because obviously this could have a real impact on your audience's competitors' opinion of your business. And if they see that you're being disingenuous, then that's going to make them distrusting of you and your services, and they're ultimately not going to buy from you. But it is a good tactic to use if you can come up with a really good offer. If you're not sure how to use scarcity correctly, what I would do is I would have a look at your competitors' ads, and you should get some examples of scarcity that's done well and scarcity that's done not so well, and then you can go from there and use those examples to create your own type of scarcity that makes your offer way more compelling. The last step, and this is perhaps the most important step, and that is to include a CTA. A CTA can be very difficult to write, but it is the thing that is the most overlooked, and people use kind of very generic sales language, which often puts people off. That said, you do need to make sure that you are writing your CTA in a way that's really clear and concrete, because you don't want to leave any room for confusion. So think about, how would you tell someone on a sales call with a client, how would you tell them that they need to do this? How would you give them the exact instructions to take the action that you want them to take? Think about that and then write that down, and that should be your CTA. Obviously, you can use things like buzzwords to generate a bit more excitement, but generally speaking, I like to keep my CTAs really simple, just because it is still really, really important, and it's, again, arguably the most important part of your copy, but that doesn't mean that it needs to be long. I feel like if you've done your job and your readers got to the end of the ad and they're reading the CTA, then that's a good sign that you've done your job as a copywriter and you've compelled them with your offer. So yeah, just make sure that you use very clear and concrete language, explain how they need to take the next steps in as few words as possible, and this way the reader will have less time to think about whether or not they actually want to take the next steps, and they'll just do it straight away. So yeah, that's it. That's everything I have for you today. I really hope that you found this video insightful and that it helps you get more ROI on your Facebook ads. If you wanted to increase your chances of getting even more results from Facebook ads and Instagram ads, get in touch with Megan Taylor Creative. We offer a free discovery call for new clients. I'll leave that down below so that you can book that and talk to us more about your particular project requirement. If you've enjoyed this video, please press the like button below and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can be made aware of new videos. And as always, I'll speak to you next week. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.